Thank you, Jim. Somewhere along the lines I heard as a speaker, never follow a child, never follow an animal act, and never follow Jim Linderman. That's the news. Tough act to follow. Universal law says, what goes up must. What comes around when you give love, you receive love or you get love. There is no better gift than the giving of yourselves. No matter what aspect you volunteer in, or your hand touches the world of volunteering, you make a difference. My daughter happens to work for St. Joseph's as a surgical tech. She came home a couple of weeks ago and she said, "Hey Mom, guess what? They've got a program at the hospital. It's called NODA. It stands for No One Dies Alone." She said it's where a volunteer sits at the bedside of someone who's dying and doesn't have anyone else present. "Isn't that great?" she said. I said, "That's amazing that a hospital would think of that." Through the Cancer Center, I've watched volunteers dedicate their time and their expertise in so many different ways and with passion. And those are simply my experiences. I know you all have so many of your own. From the administrative team members and their employees who work with the volunteers day to day, to the registrant volunteers, and everybody else here in between, you make a very big difference in the work that you do. There's a term that's used often along with volunteering, and it's been brought up here quite a bit. It's mindfulness. Who has heard of mindfulness before today? How many of you have heard the term mindfulness? Okay. Mindfulness has its origins in Eastern philosophy, and modern Western psychology has picked it up and defined it as paying attention, something my mother always told me to do, but paying attention on purpose in the present moment. Now, when I watch the Reiki volunteers work on someone, I can see that they are paying attention on purpose in the present moment, because that job, you have to do that in that job. It comes with the territory there. But what about the other positions we fill in life? How does this apply, this mindfulness thing, elsewhere in our lives? And how important is it, really? I see mindfulness as a tool. It's a tool to help us jump off this hamster wheel of life that keeps us from connecting to each other. Research shows us that mindfulness pulls the plug on stress and anxiety, and it also boosts our immune system. And there are so many other attributes that come along with mindfulness. But we do find ourselves multitasking to the nth degree, don't we? Technology has given us ways to get so much done in a short period of time. And yet, we can't seem to get it all done. And most of the time, we're running on that hamster wheel, which I like to call it, and we don't know how to get off it, how to stop it, and we go to bed with so many thoughts going through our minds, don't we? Well, I had an experience that took me off that hamster wheel. that stopped me in my tracks. And I was being mindful in that moment, and I didn't do it on purpose, so maybe I was half mindful and half mindless. I'm not sure. But I was captured by a moment. And as so many moments can do in our lives, it got my attention in a very big way and actually changed my life. And I'd like to share that story with you. I was pulling into a gas station one day, and alongside me I noticed an old, faded, red 1940s something vintage pickup truck. And it grabbed my attention because of its old beauty. And as it pulled up across from the pump from me, I watched. Being nosy, I wanted to see who was going to get out of it. And as I watched, I see a very old gentleman step out of that truck. He had to have been 90, 95 years old. And I wasn't expecting that. And for a moment, I started thinking how many years this man has lived here. It captured me. And I started to think the politics that this man has seen in the United States and on the world stage and all the years he's been through must be tremendous. He must be full of stories. And when he was a little boy, he couldn't have even dreamt of the technology that we have today. And what must he think of that? And then I started to think the loved ones that he must have lost just from his sheer number of years being on Earth. And yet he stood here getting gas just like me, still functioning. And I got this overwhelming respect for this man that I didn't even know, just because of the time that he was here on Earth. And I glanced over at him, and our eyes caught. And I noticed he was wearing a hearing aid in each ear. And knowing that in the time that he grew up, the genteelness of the time. And I said to him loudly and clearly, "Good afternoon, sir. How are you today?" And he looked surprised, and he said to me, Why, I'm fine, miss. How are you?" And I said, "I'm wonderful." And I looked up at the sky and I said to him, "Isn't it the most beautiful sunny day you've ever seen today?" And his smile broadened and he turned and he looked very slowly. And he turned back and he looked at me and he said, "Yes, it's the most beautiful day I've ever seen." And I continued getting my gas, and he continued getting his. And my mind was thinking, gosh, I wish he was my neighbor. I would plunk myself on his front porch or he on mine, and I would ask him all kinds of things. And just then, I hear, "Miss." And I turned to look, and he leaned forward, and he had the most beautiful glacier blue eyes you've ever seen. And they were filled with tears. And he said, "Thank you for saying hello to me today." And he got back in his car, in his truck. And I got back in my car, and he drove away, and I fell to tears. And I thought to myself, I could not imagine ever having this kind of an impact with hello for anybody. Now, maybe this gentleman lived alone, and maybe his contact with the world only meant an occasional grocery store trip, or to the doctor's office, or to the gas station. I don't know, and I'll never know. But the one thing I do know is the impact he had on me was significant enough to share it with you, so that in turn, you understand the potential impact you have every day as volunteers in the work that you do with a simple hello. And now, I would like to share 5 minutes of focusing on something very special in a semi-meditation. 5 minutes is very short. And what I'd like to focus on is the specialness of all of you. And if I may have a little bit of music for my background. And what I'd like you to do is you've all received a rock. Would you get that rock and hold it in the palm of your hand? And if you don't have a rock, you may steal Jim Linderman's. I know he doesn't need it really. And put the rock in the palm of your hand and feel it with your thumb or your fingers. And you have an inscription on it, and you can feel the inscription and the soft spaces in between that inscription. And then feel the edges of the rock, the soft, rounded edges. And now feel the weight of it in the palm of your hand. It has a very specific weight. And go ahead and close your eyes for just a moment, if you're comfortable to do so. And take a nice, deep breath. And with your eyes closed, we're going to give this rock a symbol of your emotional strength and spiritual wisdom that it takes for you to do what you do every day. And we're going to add to this rock the love that you shine on others through your good intentions and the deeds that you do every day. And your rock seems to become heavier. And now, in your mind, toss the rock out into the middle of an imaginary, quiet pond. And as it lands, you can see the ripple effect it creates in the water. Perfect rings that continue to expand out further and further. The ripple effect of all that you do continues on long after to those whose lives you've touched by your kindness. And in turn, feel all of the kindness that you have gifted to others as it circles back to you. Go ahead and open your eyes. You're such a good mindful group, all of you. Becoming mindful as you walk through life is the stepping stone to a richer experience in life for you and a gift to others. To quote Buddha, do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate your mind on the present moment. Thank you.